Hello again, here today in the Tier 6 British aircraft carrier, the Furious. We're on the map Estuary and the mode is Domination. We're in 6 to 8 matchmaking, as you can see, so it's going to be a bit of a tough one. That's alright. Double carrier game. We're paired with a Shokaku. Sorry about that. As I was saying, we're paired with a Shokaku and we're against a Lexington and a Ryuho, so 8-6 versus 6-8. Bit of a slight flip in terms of the mirror. Matchmaking wise, we have Massachusetts to worry about, as well as a Cleveland. Destroyers, not too much to worry about. The Yukikaze, for anyone who doesn't know, by the way, is basically a Kagero, but it uses the 8km F8s. So matchmaking, 2 Americans to worry about, but otherwise not too much else. And of course, the carriers. Now, as a Tier 6 carrier, I am vulnerable to being carrier sniped, especially by the Tier 8s, so I do need to be a bit careful. Now, carrier sniping is still exceptionally difficult, but nevertheless, something to be aware of. It is definitely possible. Looks like he's screening for his duties, or just trying to intercept me. Either way, I will find the crashed bay. Now the Furious, like all other Tier 6 carriers, recently saw a slight buff. Sorry about that. We do find the Yukikaze with patch 0.8.7, which is the patch we are on, of course. A flak. It's thick and heavy. So it buffed our deck space sizes. Hopefully that Cleveland doesn't hug that corner. I really hope he pushes. Nope, looks like he's corner hugging. Oh, that's tragic. We did hit the crash bay, of course, with our rockets. But what is this latency? We did, however, fly into quite a bit of flak. You can see the Lexington fighter leaving. It has timed out after its 1 minute escort period. Going to provide air cover. Wow, that is some sick latency. Been experiencing a bit of latency on this patch. Don't know if it's wargaming or my end, but we will see. I'm gonna pause that to just turn that down a little bit. We do find the Van Clean as I tab back in quite quickly. I'm gonna make a run. You can see the British torpedoes with the converging pattern. Give a fair bit of lead. The crash bay is slow, but so are my torpedoes. We do find the Ryuho and the Massachusetts. We're on top of the Massachusetts, so we're definitely not going to make it out. So only one thing left to do, and that is to launch the attack. Perma camo Ryuho. Do get 1 hit, so 3 hits out of 6 possible, but we do throw away some carrier aircraft. Now, as a Tier 6 carrier, our carrier aircraft did see a hit point pool buff with the patch, and a lot of surface ships saw a net AA nerf, so as a result we're much more durable. Heading off the level bombers now, you can see 2 distinct clusters of ships, a lot of destroyers. My main target is the crash bay, sorry. I want to avoid the Massachusetts at all costs. I did pre-drop 1 squadron there, because I'm not that interested in making sustained drops. Gonna hold on to the second set in case we need a bit of extra plane help. Enemy Ryuho making a run on my Richelieu. French battleships are quite difficult to citadel, however, so I'm not too concerned. Gonna make another run. We pass over the Fushan, but because I have the level bombers, I'm here to look for the Garage Bay. I'm gonna lead up, get a nice diagonal to maximize the surface area. However, he is quite slow, so I do only hit him on the axial of 1 bomb. I'm gonna fly these ones out since the Garage Bay is not too heavy in terms of AA, and the moment this ticks off, I'm no longer in AA range. There we go. Reassess my surroundings. Now again, Massachusetts is split off, the Garage Bay is still quite alone, and he's also quite a bit closer. So my targets now are destroyers and the Garage Bay. I'm avoiding this side because of the Cleveland there. Cleveland's kind of blocking most of my efforts. I could go after the Tirpitz here, as you can see, but my Shokaku is already handling him, so there's no reason to overlap our areas of influence. Continuing to harass the Grash Bay, not the most ideal of targets. He does have a heal, and he's quite tanky for a tier 6 cruiser. His AA is mediocre, but because of that heal, any fire damage or dot damage I put onto him would not be as effective. However, he is big and slow, which makes him an easy target. Leave him there, still in my way. Grash Bay making a turn now at 7 kilometers. Gonna arm my drop. Can arm them quite a bit closer. These are British torpedoes after all. Gonna arm them so I get a nice tight dispersion reticle, and I can take my time to line up and adjust. Now, British torpedoes are quite slow, so you do have to give quite a bit of lead time. I do miss one of my 2 torpedoes, unfortunately. He has launched a fighter as well, but I'm gonna go in anyhow and finalize. You can see here, even launching at just 3 kilometers, my allies do shoot down the fighter escort. Provide a fair bit of lead. He still has yet to shoot down a single plane because of his poor AA. He finally does, but I do clip him and kill him. So the British torpedo is a pretty good torpedo, as you can see. Slow moving, but you get that converging pattern and you can arm them fairly close to the target. And unlike American or Japanese torpedoes, they're not nearly as sensitive. And as a result of that decreased sensitivity, you can pull off some, shall we say, trick shots. Now my team seems to be slowly taking apart the enemy team. The Ryuho does drop. He pushed a bit too far up, as you can see, and he was unable to prevent the Richelieu from pushing him in. So we're probably going to take these kids apart fairly quickly at this point. I'm looking for the Elba. The Cleveland has since migrated over, potentially trying to prevent my team from pushing. Elba pops up. Not at the best angle, as you can see. I would prefer to be lined up the other way. That's alright, give him a bit of lead so that he can move into the reticle, but he's moving fairly slowly. Nevertheless, a good 5k pass on him as I bring the reticle forward. Now the Lexington does drop a fighter for the Alba, so this is going to be our final pass. You can see the Alba turning in, so I'm going to give him a fair bit of lead. Accelerate on the way out, do relight a fire. 2 fires in fact, sorry if there's a bit of latency. Really don't know what's going on this batch. Just horrific frame rate stutter. Let's see if I can fix that. I'm on recording. VSync is normally pretty bad for frame rate. Okay. Don't know what's up with that, but hopefully I can get the frame rate stutter to disappear, as it were. Now we did take the 2 fires onto the Elba, but he has since put them out, apparently. Or maybe I didn't set a fire on the first pass, I'm not quite sure. My allied Shokaku has moved forward quite aggressively. But that's quite alright, he's dispatched most of the opposition, though he does still need to be aware that the Tirpitz could potentially dead strike him, if he does manage to get spotting. My team has seized every cap. It's going to be a fairly straightforward game. In spite of being bottom tier, we were able to pick on some tier 6 targets. Now the Tirpitz is a tier 8 battleship, however, unlike the Massachusetts, which we were actively avoiding, his AA is rather mediocre. I could go after the Alba, but because I'm greedy and don't want to go after a 700 hit point target, I'm going to go after the Tirpitz. My torpedoes have an alpha of 5200, so I do actually hit quite hard. I'm going to give a fair bit of lead. My torpedoes are slow, much slower than the Shokaku's, and he's in the middle of a turn. He is going to dispatch 2 of my torpedo bombers as I turn. But because I get the converging pattern, I can line up shots like this. Is this gonna hit? I'm not actually sure. There we go. Looks like the Alba's not dead. Given he was so low, I'm just gonna go after him with rockets. Now I don't really like the rockets on the Furious, they only have 26mm of penetration, but more importantly, you only have 6 rockets per payload, which means every time you fire, you're only launching 12 rockets. With the dispersion pattern on the Hurricanes, which is pretty bad, to be honest, and the rather large ellipse, you do get quite a bit of rocket spray. Now my team cleans up 2 kills, and that cleans up the game. Fairly straightforward game. We did get a kill, but nothing special at all. Very conservative 43,000 damage, 8 torpedoes, hit 11 carpet bombs or level bombers, 2 incaps, 2 kills, 4 fires, 8 spotting ribbons, and 9 rockets. Team score wise, didn't do too much in the way of things. Looks like Rabid Rabbit here, an SCCC player. I've been very impressed by these guys these past few days when I queued with him. Putting in some nice work. Now given the game was pretty boring, and we didn't have too much to talk about, I'm gonna hit up another quick re-queue. Hopefully we get into the matchmaker once again. I'm hoping that we get bottom tiered once more, but alone without any company, so that you can feel the full brunt of our impact onto a match. Because the enemy team folded so quickly, I wasn't able to exert that much influence. So forgive me, but you're gonna have to sit into the queue with me. While we wait, however, the Furious, like most Royal Navy carriers, has the British loadout of rockets, torpedoes, and level bombers. As you saw, the rockets are your primary anti-destroyer weapon. They're nice and precise, like all British aircraft. They have the unique trait of being able to maneuver quite a bit once you've locked in your attack. So they're a lot less stringent about you kind of lining up your attack in a nice straight line and then moving forward. However, as a result, they do pay in terms of alpha damage. The British rockets have a lot less penetration and damage per rocket than their Japanese or American counterparts. So the potential damage on the rockets is quite a bit lower, even though you do get better handling. In addition, the British planes are very slow. The Hurricane is quite a bit slower than the A6M2s found on the Ryuho, or even the Wildcats found on the Ranger. And the low rocket alpha, 1500 per rocket, so you put that over 3, gives you about 500 damage per rocket. It actually comes out to something like 462, I think, because it's 30%, not 33%. And so when you only shoot out 12 rockets per strike, and typically land between, let's say, 2 to 6 rockets, you're not putting that much damage out. The torpedoes, on the other hand, are excellent. As you saw last game, they have nice handling. You can do a lot of turning and burning even after you lock in the attack. And indeed, you can kind of lock in early, get the pattern nice and tight, and then turn your aircraft to pull off some neat trick shots. The torpedoes have an excellent alpha damage, 5200, and they have really good flood chance, at least for an air-launched torpedo. Now this game, we're again bottom tier, we're against a Ryuho. No other carrier to share with this time. Nothing particularly impressive in terms of AA, maybe an Octoboy if he has defensive fire, I suppose. The battleships are tier 8s, so not my preferred target at all, but I'll hit them if I have to. A Legal pops up. Nice unarmored on-tier cruiser. Was unable to find any destroyers, so I have no qualms about emptying my rockets into his unarmored hull. Well, relatively unarmored. 8 rockets, pretty above average roll. Like I said, we only launched 12, so 8 out of 12 is a pretty good hit rate. And we just set a fire. Let's see if we can relight him on our second pass. No such luck. So you see this reshatter, so the rockets have hit the belt. So we were unable to find any of the Horde destroyers on our first initial screening pass. That's alright. We did harass a Legal Saunier. I'm sure he's going to be very happy about getting taxed in that way. The ally pop manages to spot this Ognipoy. I really don't know why I'm getting this FPS frame stutter. It could be the patch that was downloaded last evening. This does sometimes tend to happen on new content patches. Now I'm going to be striking probably one of these tier 8 battleships. I'm only going to be making one strike. because if I hit one and then pass through the combined A there, I'm just gonna lose the planes. So I'm gonna pre-drop the 2. No point wasting planes. Well, I do have more of them now, they're still very precious. Torpedo bomber is the best squadron. 40 knot torpedoes, converging pattern, like so. Very short range, but also short arming distance. Whoever gets closer, honestly, is gonna get hit. I'm gonna drop these as close as possible. Unfortunately, I do lose one on the way in, so I'm only gonna arm one. But it looks like we do get one hit, probably on the Roma, based on the positioning. No flood, but that does happen. Would have liked to hit the other torpedo there. Now, in terms of the other side, let's see what we see. There's Edinburgh, New Orleans, Amagi pushing forward, escorted by a Gepard and a Mogami. I could continue striking these guys, but it's not like I got a dot or anything to follow up on. And this Amagi is seen to be pushing forward and probably under intense fire by my Mogami and Igla. So, I'm gonna hit him up. Now the Amagi does have fairly decent AA. I would not say it's particularly awful at all. But, it's still a battleship with relatively middling AA. Definitely not any cruiser in terms of AA power, and he doesn't have any defensive fire or anything like that, so perfectly valid target to strike. Octovoid does dispatch my Kagero, and I'm losing members, so we're gonna need to exert ourselves a little bit on this match. Excuse me. Bringing in the level bombers, so these are the tier 6 level bomber. They've been improved since I did my original Furious grind. They used to only have 1 strip of bombs per pass, so it was 3 singles. Now we have 3 twins, so the squadron has doubled in size and doubled in munitions density. He's not really maneuvering side to side, so since he's giving us a nice lineup, I'm just going to drop it straight on. If he was turning, however, I'd probably approach out of V, kind of like this, to get the maximum cross section. Looking for a bow fire here. I don't get it, however, but I do manage to get some pens. As I said, only 32mm of penetration, so I do penetrate battleship plate. Fortunately, in terms of my example here, the Amagi is covered in 32mm plates. Not too much in the ways of external thick armor that is unlisted. I do lose another ally as I get some further FPS drops. This is rather annoying. Hopefully it doesn't affect the quality of the recording too much. The Amagi is taking significant damage now at this point. I did set him on fire earlier, so someone must have gotten a follow-up fire, and it looks like it was the Igla. So we'll take him out. There's 2 cruisers there, that's the Mogami and New Orleans. New Orleans may have defensive fire, and even if he doesn't, he is American. He's also a tier 7. So I'm going to pre-drop at least 1 squadron. And then using the extra health to buffer in our entry into the attack vector, we'll see if we can manage more than 1 strike. And you saw that circling there, that was from a huge ping spike. So that's what happens. You see that happen to your airplanes, you are having some latency. Nevertheless, okay, that's real fun. So I'm dropping completely blind. Looks like even though I dropped completely blind while I had latency, I was actually kind of close in terms of timing it. I just couldn't make the course adjustments to get the torpedoes to land. An interesting example to keep, perhaps. Now my team is losing quite heavily. Oh my fucking god, give me back my frames, Wargaming. Even if I'm having latency on my end, FPS issues are definitely on Wargaming's side. Okay, interesting random circle. Heading out with the level bombers. Still going after some thin-skinned cruisers. Mogami has launched a fighter. His AA engages me at 5.8 kilometers. so I'll engage my bombers. Now I'm gonna get intercepted by a fighter here. He is, however, not maneuvering particularly much. I do have my immunity zone. Note, well, my planes are passing until I regain control of them. I'm gonna try and escort these guys out. Let's ditch into the mountain. And we'll F out. Note the immunity zone as it passes over the impassable terrain. Someone is crying about fighters. I don't even know who you are. Who is this kid? An Igla. Alright, no one cares about you. I need fighters. You need nothing. Alba's pretty pushed up, but I want to go after that Mogami. He already launched his fighter, and I did set a fire on him, so... Gonna use my torpedo bombers. Now ideally I'd be cycling my reserves. Note that I have maximum fighter capacity, but I don't really want to use that anemic squadron unless I have to. Gepard presenting himself as a target. Now, hitting a destroyer, especially a faster one such as a Gepard with torpedoes, can present a bit of a challenge. You have to give them a fair bit of lead, and they have to be kind of stupid and walk into you. Defensive fire from Mogami looks like. I'm gonna peel away, but at least I did prevent the Gepard from sitting in my base gap. I'm gonna peel out of the AA. I do hit a flak while his defensive fire is active, bringing my ships down to orange health. My team does manage to dispatch the Gepard, however. I'm gonna re-enter in spite of the orange health and defensive fire that's active. I'm gonna see if I can't try to predict. I am unable to get to prediction. I'm gonna pass back behind the mountain. There's a Roma there with air cover. You saw briefly there was a fighter in that vicinity. As I get pushed back. Okay, they do take out the Mogami. That's something. It means I can go forward and attack this Roma. Now Roma, in terms of tier 8 battleships, does not have the greatest of AA, but it's not horrendous either. You can see it has a rather short engagement range, very German, similar to the German 105mm. Now this is definitely not an optimal approach angle with the level bomber. You can see there's a very thin cross section at which I can hit him. I do in fact only hit him with one bomb out of the 12 I release, I believe. 6 per plane? Yeah, 6 per plane. But sometimes you don't have time to adjust. And I certainly don't have time to circle around. Someone does light a fire. Gonna have to settle for another not great pass. 2,000 damage over the squadron. Not fantastic. But you do what you can. You're gonna relaunch torpedo bombers. Note that the Edinburgh is approaching my range. So I should turn this way and try and kill the Roma so I can make my turn safely. Need to get in front of his nose. I have detected. The British planes have fairly poor detection. But there's nothing I can do about that. I am faster than the Roma by a fair bit, of course. It's aircraft versus surface ships. Edinburgh does touch my detection range. You'll note that popped up. So I'm gonna get shot at shortly. Expecting to see chip damage on my health pool any second now. Turns away. So I'm gonna chase torp. I have the converging British torpedoes, and he has rather poor AA, so I'm expecting to get a chase torp. There we go, one chase torp flood, and that makes this torpedo very easy. He has damage controlled, so I'm gonna lead a little bit. Alright, there's an Ognovoy. And an angle, my second torpedo does connect with the Roma. Done a fair bit more damage this time. I have a full fighter squadron, or rocket plane squadron. And he's a fairly low HP Ognovoy. It doesn't appear that he has defensive fire, so I guess he's opting for speed boost. Fair enough. quite a bit of lead. Unfortunately, the anemic British rockets there, kind of showing off why I don't really like them. I make as tight a turning circle as possible by holding back on the boost. Arm early so that I don't overlead it. And I do manage to sink it. Nevertheless, there is a Edinburgh in pursuit of me, and I don't have many teammates left. Roma AP heading in for my hull. Does hit me for a fair amount. Don't have time to worry about him though. I'm gonna try and defend myself from the Edinburgh, who is surprisingly not shooting me that much. Now, Edinburgh is a cruiser, so give him a fair bit of lead. Within the armored cruiser, however, so I'm gonna go for the immediate switch over. Hit him with 2 torpedoes, as you saw there from my good lead. He will dispatch me, however. And I have this final squadron of level bombers to try and burn him down. Now I did flood him. He damage controlled, as you can see. Even without looking at the damage number, I can see that he damage controlled because that plume of steam that comes out from ships that are flooding disappeared. I do set a permanent fire. Remember, giving them a fair bit of lead. Unfortunately, I cannot see the bombs as they drop because my last squadron looks like he turned out of the ellipse. So I'm going to burn him for a bit more, but we are going to lose. However, you can see I was bottom tier this game, and just by selecting the right targets, using the right munitions, I can have more of an impact. Now the level bombers in general, they're good versus large and medium targets, but light targets such as destroyers, not great. I'd really rather use the torpedo bombers and the rocket planes against them where possible. This is of course not always possible. Ryuho attacking the Bismarck again. The Bismarck and her sister Tirpitz, not exactly the greatest in terms of AA. He's trimmed 3 planes so far, 4 planes. He makes his pass. Looks like he whiffed into the water by the stern. He's attempting to make another pass. This is another plane. Bismarck AA is nothing to write home about, but it's more than sufficient to deal with most tier 6s. 1 bomb, however, can he connect it? Only a penetrating hit, looks like. The Ryuho Citadel hit, of course, does 6,000 damage, so a pen does about 2k. My Eyeglass struggling to stay alive. He of course does not pen any of the high tier battleships. He's a bottom tier destroyer. And even if he was a top tier destroyer, he doesn't have the gun caliber to pen battleships. The only ones that do it in this matchmaking bracket are of course the Akazuki and her semi-sister, the Harikaze. And you can see here, Valkyr Warframe doing it right. You gotta announce your gift crack it if you want to crack it, so you gotta let people know. If you don't let people know, people will take it from you. So don't be upset when they accidentally take your kill and such. Ryuho does make a pass on the Igla. Looks like he attacked too early or made too violent of a maneuver. And as a result, you got that huge V spread. You don't see that as much on the Furious torpedo bombers due to their excellent conversion characteristic, as well as just their ability to maneuver after the torpedoes are armed. Second drop, again, looks like you did not give them time to converge. You can get them parallel on the Ryuho, so them V'ing out means it's still not a perfect convergence in terms of Japanese torpedoes. He is dropping blind, trying to suss the Igla from the smoke, and we'll never know what that drop looked like, but the Roma did get his Kraken, so nicely done. We did of course lose this second match, but it's quite alright. I feel like we had enough of an impact. So, damage wise, 84,000, nothing to write home about. I am of course bottom tier again though, so not too upset. This was done over 5 torpedo hits, 25 level bomb hits, 2 in-caps, 1 kill, 6 fires, 2 floods, and 19 rocket hits. Team score wise, we are close to the top. The Igla, who was struggling with me, also doing pretty well, and unsurprisingly the Bismarck above us. Then we head over to the detailed report. A good mix of damage this time. We did get some good damage out of the level bombs. I don't really like them, but if you go after thin-skinned battleships like the Amagi, you can still get some impressive results. The Edinburgh likewise also takes pretty good damage. The Gal, we went after rockets. This guy went after bombs. This guy was mostly torpedoes. And then you have the anemic rocket damage, but mostly focus on these two munitions, of which I prefer to use the torpedoes, definitely the high point. And you get a fair bit of fire damage. Yeah, there you have it. Very straightforward carrier, the Furious. It's really just more about target selection than anything else. You gotta know what your munitions pen. Your level bombers pen 32, your rockets pen 26. So rockets for cruisers and battleship superstructure. Bombs for universally most cruisers. You can, not a stretch, you can use them against destroyers, but I wouldn't recommend it. And you can use them against thinner skinned battleships. So any battleships on tier that have 25mm plate, that's fair game. Some of the more heavily armored on tier battleships, so like the German Bayern or even the Arizona with the distributed armor scheme, will resist the 32mm pen because they do have thicker plates on some areas, but for the most part, on tier battleships you can bully quite easily. As you reach higher tiers though, when you're bottom tier for example, and you attack something like a Vladivostok or a Bismarck, which has 50mm midsection plating, you'll tend to see a lot more shatters. And torpedo-wise, the torpedoes are excellent, so stick with the torpedoes, do what you can with them. Use the level bombers if you have to. They're especially good for setting follow-up fires, and the rockets are garbage. But sometimes you gotta use rockets, like that Ogden boy that I killed at the end in the second match. He was a pain in the ass to deal with rockets because my rockets didn't kill him on the first pass, but you do what you gotta do. And that kind of sums up the Furious. It's not very exciting, but you do what you gotta do to get to the implacable.